Oh, Guildenstern, welcome back.
Yes, that's a crazy line to throw out there.
It's a great place to get murdered.
What's wrong with Hamlet? What's up with them?
Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe we're crazy.
Here we go. So we are still in Act 2, Scene 2, which is a huge scene, but this is kind of part 2, our part 2 of Act 2, Scene 2, if that makes any sense at all.
Yes. It is an extremely long scene. It's curious that whoever decided to delineate what was a scene and what wasn't, just, I don't know, was remiss in dividing this up, what have you. But nonetheless, thus we proceed.
Yes.
Where we last left off, Polonius has been entreating the king not only to Hamlet's madness, but also to his thoughts on how to investigate further.
Yes.
And as he's explaining this, Polonius is saying, I'll loose my daughter to him. I'm going to use, and what Polonius does, I'm going to use my own flesh and blood to investigate what's going on with Hamlet, because the king, even though the king's told, hey, his father's dead, and you married his mother very quickly, he's like, nah, it's probably not that. So it's back to, as we discussed before, what's wrong with Hamlet? What's up with them?
Yeah, the rest of this scene is as far as Hamlet goes, it's all reactionary from him, but the whole plot of the rest of this scene is what's up with Hamlet? Why is he acting that way? Which also, I think we learned that he's been acting that way for, if you go by the timeline of what people say, for 3 months, he's been acting odd. So this is kind of a big deal for the king. It's such a big deal that Polonius feels like, if I figure it out, if I get the answer, right, then I'm going to look great. And this is something I can figure out, and this is part of my job. So it's a big deal for the king. And it's a big deal to figure out why he's acting. And so right as he comes up with this plan, and as soon as the king says, we'll try it, perfectly timed entrance, Hamlet makes an entrance, reading upon a book. And they said earlier, he reads, he walks here for hours at a time. So he's been behaving this certain way and doing a lot of reading, which some productions take that very literally. You can look online and see productions of Hamlet sitting around stacks of books like it's a Burgess Meredith Twilight Zone episode.
Good reference.
Thank you.
One of my favorites, yes.
Oh, Time at Last or something like that.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah, really great. Some will do that. So we are entering, so we are starting our part 2 with Hamlet entering. So Polonius is shooing off king, queen, possibly Ophelia. Last we discussed if she's in that scene or not.
Yes.
In the bad quarto, she is in that. And later on, after we read through Fishmonger, I would like to talk a little bit about the bad quarto, just because I think it's just interesting. I just think, and there's a big shift in what happens here to the from the bad quarto to the folio and to quarto 2. All right, so Polonius says, yeah.
Would you like to read Hamlet and I'll read Polonius for this exchange?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Should we read through the scene first?
Maybe read through the screen and then we can discuss it.
And then go back and discuss. Great. Let's do it.
So prior to that, Polonius says, away I do beseech you both, away. I'll board him presently. Oh, give me leave. How does my good Lord Hamlet?
Well, God of mercy.
Do you know me, my lord?
Excellent. Well, you are a fishmonger.
Not I, my lord.
Then I would you were so honest a man.
Honest, my lord.
Aye, sir. To be honest, as this world goes, is to be one man picked out of 10,000.
That's very true, my lord.
For if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, have you a daughter?
I have, my lord.
Let her not walk of the sun. Conception is a blessing, but as your daughter may conceive, friend, look to it.
How say you by that? Still harping on my daughter, yet he knew me not at first. He said I was a fishmonger. He is far gone. And truly in my youth I suffered much extremity for love very near this. I'll speak to him again. What do you read, my lord?
Words. Words. Words.
What is the matter, my lord?
Between who?
I mean, the matter that you read, my lord.
Slanders, sir. For the satirical rogue says here that old men have gray beards, that their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber and plum tree gum, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit, together with most weak hams, all which, sir, though I most powerfully and potently believe, yet I hold it not honesty to have it thus set down. For you yourself, sir, shall grow as old as I, if, like a crab, you could go backward.
Oh, this be madness. Yet there is method in't. Will you walk out of the air, my lord?
Into my grave?
Indeed, that's out of the air. How pregnant sometimes his replies are. A happiness that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity could not so prosperously be delivered of. I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. My lord, I will take my leave of you.
You cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part withal, except my life, except my life, except my life.
Fare you well, my lord.
These tedious old fools.
You go to seek the Lord Hamlet. There he is. So, okay.
There
Lovely.
he is, the old Hume Cronin in the
yes.
And Barton is like, you go to seek the Lord Hamlet? There he is.
There
Good
he
luck.
is. Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that one.
Good luck there. You know, it's lovely. I love that Polonius constantly not makes excuses for Hamlet, but constantly reasons Hamlet's behavior in this scene. Hamlet will do something crazy, and Polonius has an aside that goes, yeah, it's crazy, but I remember feeling this way. Or, yeah, but this makes sense if he's mad. Like, he's constantly justifying the behavior for Hamlet.
Which is interesting because it tells you that, number one, he's not really listening to a certain extent. And number two, and the reason being is that he had decided in advance what the reason was. And now he's just hunting just to, further proof of his point. And particularly since he's made the point to the king that this is this.
Take this from this.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about proving what he just said and definitely not searching beyond that. So it's a curious scene. He's observing, but yet also looking for clues to back up his claim.
That's good. So he has a theory, right? Taking the facts to fit the theory instead of the theory to fit the facts.
Yes.
So Hamlet enters, and I've always been of the belief that he should be dressed the way Ophelia just described him in the scene before, right? So Ophelia says his socks are down by his ankles. He wasn't wearing any garters. His shirt was white because he's whited his shirt. His doublet is undone. And that was 10 minutes ago, right?
That's a good point. I did not consider that in terms of the timing, because that's, I guess, if you consider it played out in real time, because between my lord, I've been so frightened, to let's go seek the king, to him, going through the whole, ambassadors from Norway and the whole, spididdle. So, I mean, one could argue maybe Hamlet changed and bathed between then. But
sure.
But it's kind of silly to argue that when you have the opportunity, as you mentioned, which I never considered.
I think to kind of, not to simplify things, but to keep that line going, that linear line of thought, I think if Hamlet shows up, which in a lot of these productions, he shows up either wearing something crazy or in his pajamas or even, in some kind of makeup, and you think, when did all that? So he went in and did this thing with Ophelia and then went and suddenly changed clothes. I mean, could be, but it would be nice if he showed up the way Ophelia described him, because then you start thinking, did Ophelia just make that up if he doesn't look like that?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's the first time we get. When's the last time we saw Hamlet?
The last time we saw Hamlet is after the ghost leaves. Wait, and he made
it was after
swear?
Cellarage. Yes. So he makes everyone swear, and he says, "I'm going to put on an antic disposition. You don't pretend that you know that I'm pretending to blah blah blah." And then he says, "Oh, cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right." And then they leave. That was the last time we saw him, was in the cellarage scene. We just heard about his behavior. Time has passed. We've heard he's been acting crazy. So there's a bit of a build-up to this entrance. What he's going to look like, what he's going to sound like, right?
It's his first time appearing in the act at all. So yeah, it's kind of a big moment. And you could ruin it having come in with wearing a tuxedo and a pig's head, but then why? What's that for?
Right. Yeah, right.
So yeah.
And we should be, there should be some anticipation from us thinking, okay, how is he behaving? How is he acting? He said he was going to put on this thing, and we've heard that he's been acting crazy because Polonius has now said, I have found the cause of your son's madness. So we are anticipating something. So there's an opportunity. I guess what I'm saying is there's an opportunity there for the director, for the actor, for the production to make this entrance not spectacular, but be aware of what this entrance means to the audience. And like I said, be aware of what we've set up ahead of time. And so when he does speak, well, God of mercy, the first time we are hearing him speak, I think there's weight on that line. There's as much weight on that line as it is a little more than kin and less than kind, right? We're seeing this new Hamlet. Yeah.
That's another very good point I didn't consider. You're right, because the play begins with the introduction to Hamlet, everything we know that has been spoken of, and the weight of that. And then, yes, everything we now know on top of that. I think so. And I think in just a bit, after we talk about this scene, I'm going to try to convince everyone that the bad quarto order is better. But I think I just convinced myself the opposite of that just now. So that should be an interesting conversation later. See what happens when I start talking. See what happens when I start talking this stuff out. I can't make I go back and forth, and that's what's great about this play, right? Right. It absolutely changes everything around, and it has. That's the beauty of its versatility in terms of perspective, I suppose.
Yes, that's right. So guys. So how does my good Lord Hamlet? Well, God of mercy. So this whole scene, there's just it's what's great about this play. There's opportunity. And at the same time, it forces you to make choices as actors, as Polonius and Hamlet, as the director, as the production. How crazy are we going to go? How comic are we going to go? What's it going to look like? You have to make some choices, and you've got great opportunities. And a lot of these lines I've seen played multiple times, and I've seen them work multiple ways. And that's what's great about this scene. This is kind of the scene where you get to start, quote unquote, playing Hamlet, the Hamlet that people think of, right? Up till this point, you got to kind of be in the moment. You start playing at that antic disposition. If you want to, that's the opportunity there. So, well, God of mercy, his first line to Polonius. And then what's Polonius going into this? Paul, if you were the actor playing Polonius, are you going in it, like you said, you're going in it looking for those facts to support your theory, but he's been behaving strangely for the past 3 months. So there is a bit of, I don't know, hesitancy going into
it's definitely that, but again, Polonius, knowing that he's behaved strangely in the last 3 months, and maybe prior to today, not either ignoring it or not fully, either not putting much investigation into it or not thinking enough of it to the point, again, today, my daughter comes in, Ophelia comes in and says, "My lord, I've been so frightened," describes Hamlet as a mess and scary and walking backwards and the whole thing. So it's right now, Polonius is clouded over, forget the last 3 months, his discovery that he's giving as a gift to his king. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because he
true.
knows the king and the queen are watching. They're seeing this.
Oh, right.
So
Oh,
again,
that was my other question. Are the king and queen, are they watching this scene happen?
Yeah.
Are they watching? Okay.
I mean, they're behind an arras, but how heavy is that arras?
It's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that played that way, that the king and queen, I usually seen the king and queen exit so that they're not privy to this scene. I don't think I've ever seen them actually listening. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he say, "Get the hell away from here, behind an arras, you fools"? No, he doesn't say that, but he says,
no, he just says, "Away, I beseech you both away." Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I guess he doesn't do I guess the arras was what his plan. So he's very arras oriented. I've said this many times, Polonius.
Yes. It's a great place to get murdered.
I think he had in the ninth quarto, Polonius actually had money invested in an arras company. So he is an arras investor, hence the pushing of the arras stuff.
I think it is, constantly the heiresses with this guy.
So one could, right, you could, because he said, "Away, I do beseech you, I'll board him presently." Where do they go? Do they just let's just hang out? I mean,
right, which makes you think, where were they? We talked about them being in the grand room with the throne, and now he's like, "Get out of here, Hamlet's coming into this room." That's another thing that Shakespeare is good at. Things are fluid. Once you think, "Oh, we are in the room with the advisors, with the throne," and then all of a sudden the next scene, Polonius makes everyone go away and it's just him, and you go, "Well, I can't be in that room." So everything is fluid.
And I would say, if I was a director and as the actor, if I was a rich man, you could make the choice that, oh, well, they went back to their respective closets, and just hung out, wait for the news. Well, that doesn't seem like logical. It seems like I know the reason why he's saying, "Oh, I'm going to check him out, get out of here so I can talk to him." Like, oh, I mean, it makes sense to be like, let's hang back just a little bit so they don't see us, but let's listen in.
I like that idea. I would love to see it played with Claudius and Gertrude listening. I think it adds a whole other level to Polonius trying very hard, and also Polonius trying to make up for why it gets awkward.
Yes,
I think it's pretty good. I like that idea.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot. Polonius has a lot going on. The self-consciousness of knowing that he is being watched, I think, plus him basically trying to have actions prove his previous preordained theory.
Yeah.
None of it has to actually do with giving a crap about Hamlet or even listening to what he's saying. Again, Polonius, I know Horatio is the villain of the play, but Polonius, he's no saint. He's a little misguided.
Right. I love that Shakespeare gives Polonius these asides. It's almost stand-up comic-like, these asides. He can take them straight to the audience if he wants to, which is really interesting.
Yes.
There's a lot of opportunity in that, of how far you want to go with the comedy. And some of this you just can't help but be funny. Some of it reads like one of Shakespeare's comedies. It reads like moments of comedy of errors.
Absolutely. Right? And thank goodness for that, because in a dark and otherwise very depressing play like this, you need that comedy. Otherwise, you just kill yourself by Act 4.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Also of note, it goes from, how does my good Lord Hamlet? Well, God of mercy. He goes, do you know me, my Lord? Why does Polonius say that? Because of the way Hamlet deals with him. It's either,
Yes.
and that's another great choice for the actor and the director. What does Hamlet do causes Polonius to say something like, do you know me, my Lord? And also
Yeah.
begs the question, when was the last time Polonius was in the same room with Hamlet?
That's a good point. And really, yeah, you're right. If it's been 3 months, if they haven't spoken in 3 months, if they, yeah, this could be right. There's a lot of tension here. You're right that you've got to warrant, the actor playing Hamlet has got to warrant the actor playing Polonius saying, do you know me, my Lord? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and of course, Hamlet responds as saying,
yes, excellent. Well, full stop. And then the old turn in the sitcom turn, right? Like, yes, I know who you are, and then getting it completely wrong. That's a classic sitcom turn.
But of course, does he get it completely wrong?
Well, I mean, I think to the audience's ear, it's going to sound that way.
Yes.
So because the excellent well leads you to believe, yes, you're Ophelia's father, you're Polonius, you're advisor to the state. That's what excellent well sounds like, right? Excellent well, you are a fishmonger. And, choosing the word fishmonger, what that actually means. Yes, enough so that Polonius has to say, no, you're wrong.
And of course, fishmonger could constitute a number of things.
Right.
And that the actor to choose, it's definitely not he's not flattering Polonius by any stretch of the imagination.
That's it. And again, you're right. You get to choose in this scene how dark you want to go with it, right? Like does nunnery mean whorehouse? Does fishmonger mean pimp, right? Whatever it is. Or does fishmonger mean, oh, you smell like a fishmonger, someone who works around fish, or is it just completely wrong? You get to choose. How dark are we going here? How straight up comedy mad are we going here? And you get to make those choices.
Yes.
So Polonius, not I, my lord, full stop. So Polonius is just kind of leaving the bait out there. He's not the one saying, oh, no, I'm Polonius, I'm Ophelia's father, whatever. He's just saying, not I, my lord, letting Hamlet behave and watching Hamlet's behavior. Then I would you were so honest a man. This is one of those themes that's going to keep coming up. Honesty, lying, who you are. So it's one of those kind of jabs things that Hamlet can say that has all this truth layered underneath it, I guess.
Yeah. And what hadn't occurred to me until your excellent reading of that particular line, that I would you were so honest a man, it is, I guess Polonius is saying, I wish you were so as plain spoken and as simple-minded, maybe to a certain extent. I don't know.
Right.
I'm sorry. Hamlet is saying to Polonius, I wish you were.
I wish you were, right. And then, but Polonius jumps on that word honest, which is really interesting, that he picks up on that word. Like, well, what do you mean by that? What is honest? And then again, another line that I think can sound off the top and a little crazy, but also has a lot of truth underneath it if you understand where Hamlet is right now. If you understand what he's been going through the last 3 months. To be honest, as this world goes, is to be one man picked out of 10,000. So now this is a man who's constantly questioning who's there. Is what he's constantly questioning, right? Yeah. So again, it's a comedy scene, can be very funny, but there's these real things underneath. So Polonius testing Hamlet, Hamlet testing Polonius. It can be quite fun in this scene.
Absolutely. And then Polonius says, even though he has an agenda and is clouded by his prejudgment, his prejudice, he takes note. He goes, oh, well, It's very true, my lord. He makes it very
Yes.
good point.
If we look at Polonius's lines so far, they've all been, 4 or 5 words, very short, very to the point,
Yes.
almost taking notes, right? Like just really watching, which is quite good. He doesn't give anything away to Hamlet. He gives stuff away to us in the asides, right?
Yes.
And then Hamlet goes off, and this line is written differently in different scripts. For if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, which apparently, from what I've read, that was the belief that the sun could make life out of something dead, out of a dead carcass. It would make life. So if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, the sun can make life out of something dead, being a good kissing carrion. Now there is a text, and I really like it, that says a god kissing carrion. They give you the sun being the god kissing a dead thing. That's kind of nice too. God, I think I've always said God kissing carrion. He interrupts his thought with, have you a daughter?
And by the way, something occurred to me when last I looked at this line. I've been thinking about it. No, I know Hamlet is feigning madness, and he's also, being playful and maybe slightly cruel to Polonius. And particularly, this is post Ophelia ignoring his letters, and when he says, for if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, I wonder if he's referring to his father and the ghost.
The ghost being what in that? Oh, being the sun.
The ghost being dead has all of a sudden is brought to life.
Oh, for if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion. Right. Well, you're right, because those are all the themes that are on his mind as well. Is this death? What happens after death? Yeah, that's true. And he starts bringing that stuff in a lot. Yeah.
Particularly if one, and you look at the son as you could be also the son, the father, the son breeding maggots in a dead dog. Hamlet's, dealing with a dead dog, and so far has bred nothing but disgust.
Wow, right.
So
right.
Just a thought.
Yeah, it's true, because when you hear the word son, it's not so, my lord, I am too much in the sun. When we hear the word son, we hear both S-O-N and S-U-N, which these plays were meant to be heard, right? Because a lot of people, they weren't reading these plays, they were listening. So anytime you hear the word son in a play that is about fathers and sons, I think it's a good point. Yeah.
And what better way to fuck with Polonius than to give coded messages about a truth?
Nah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
He's like telling him what's going on, but in a way Polonius could never possibly figure out.
That's
so anyway,
great. Yeah, that's great. I've never thought of that before. I like that a lot. It points to kind of where Hamlet's mind is, what he's been thinking about, what's on his mind. His references refer to sun and being dead and a god and all this stuff. So then he goes straight for the crazy jugular vein. He goes straight to the crazy. Have you a daughter? Which totally is a signal of like, I have no idea who you are or where we are. I know nothing.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Straight for the jugular. Yes. And again, Polonius, keeping it short and simple. Very good.
But also consider this, putting on the air of mental illness or craziness gives you the freedom to say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, it's true.
And so it's a weapon. It's not just, Hamlet is very smart. And so unconsciously, even though he's feigning madness to kind of trick people, it's also a weapon. Yes. Because you fool them, and it also gives you the opportunity to say anything.
Yes, and disorientate. Like it's what he does in the play within the play coming up, right? Constantly keeping people, even his intro to it, I eat the air, promise crammed, you cannot feed capons so. And even the audience is thinking, what the fuck? And Claudius goes, he basically said, I have no idea what you're saying, Hamlet.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It's a weapon. It's a weapon. Yeah.
Right. It gives you so much. I mean, think about it. People, well, let's not go too far into that. But anyway, yes, it is a weapon.
No, you're right. You're right. It is. And I think he's using it. He's using it there. So Polonius, I have, my lord, well, let her not walk in the sun. Conception is a blessing, but as your daughter may conceive, friend, look to it. Great. Again, using that weapon, that kind of double talk. What does it mean? Pretending I don't know who is who, maybe crazy, fearful, all that stuff. The actor has the option. The director has the option. I am not here to tell you what it means because I don't know the truth. You know, I know how I've played it, and I'd probably play it differently if I get a chance to do it again.
Yeah, it's, there's so many, opportunities with the word conception and conceive.
Yes.
Let alone son. And also the word let. No. But it's, again, Hamlet still telling Polonius something but making it in an impossible code.
Yes.
But also bringing up telling him some very insightful things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. And I love to look at this Neil Freeman first folio edition that I really like. For one, when you look at it on the page, we realize, Hamlet has gone into prose, where we've pretty much only seen him in verse. Why is that? You can discuss that all day long. Also in the folio, there are seemingly random capitalizations, but some people have said that was Shakespeare's way of telling the actors what words were important. And if you start to look at that, a lot of times it makes a lot of sense. Like, oh yeah, that is important. And in that line, let her not walk in the sun, conception is a blessing. Sun is capitalized and conception is capitalized. That's it.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's consistent. Again, was that Shakespeare who capitalized it, or were his players who did it after his death? We don't know.
Sure.
But yes, it gives the actor a lot of opportunity. And then, of course, in response, Polonius,
this is great.
Turns to the audience, how say you by that? Still harping on my daughter, yet he knew me not at first. He said I was a fishmonger. He is far gone. And truly, in my youth, I suffered much extremity for love very near this. I'll speak to him again. What do you read, my lord? So
that's great.
I love
so now,
that.
That is great. So in the folio, he is far gone, far gone. He repeats far gone in the folio, right?
That's what we did when we did Hamlet in our workshop. And on the Folger just has, because I knew, and the Folger has
what
only
do you
one
like?
far gone. I thought, is there a far gone missing?
What do you prefer?
I prefer far gone, far gone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But hey, isn't it great that you get to choose? You are backed up by a text.
Yes. It adds so much more. The repetition adds so much weight and also humor to that line.
And it feels Polonius.
Yes.
Yes, right.
You wonder what was Polonius like in his youth? Was he nearer to Hamlet, or was he also kind of brilliant but a bit absent-minded as well?
He's made a couple of references in that speech to Ophelia. He made a couple of references to himself as a young man. I think it's important to look into that. It makes you think he did have like a fiery youth. Yeah.
You wonder, and whether he had his wisdom is recently learned or something he always had from youth. We don't know.
Right. So this aside. So for you, Paul, where is this aside directed to? Is it traditionally straight out to the audience? Is this up
to the actor. It's more fun when it's out to the audience. If you want to take it literally, it's an aside to himself, getting inside his head, an artistic journey into a character's mind, that something that in reality the other character in the scene is not hearing. But it's almost like a mini soliloquy.
I think you're right. And think of how if it's played correctly, it can be humorously jarring when Polonius unexpectedly turns to the audience, looks at them and goes, "How say you by that?" Like looks right at them and goes, "How about that?" And like it's so unexpected. It's so unexpected. I think you lean into that at least for a while and see where it gets you.
I always, when I did Polonius in your workshop, I always loved doing that. That's one of my favorite things. Looking out. I'll say you by that. Still harping on my daughter. But he knew me not when he saw me. He said it was a fish mark.
It's like
Fargo.
It's him going, "Am I right? Am I right? Is it him or
Am
is
I
it
right?
me?" Like it's
Yeah.
great. It's great.
I mean, I know you and I have seen some production where they take a little liberties with the text and interact with the audience. It's beauty of this is that it's right in the text.
It's right there. You don't need to.
Right.
Yeah, it's right there. You know, when you said earlier, this option is not as fun, I don't think, but it is an interesting option. When you said that possibly Gertrude and Claudius are listening,
Yeah.
these could be to them.
Yes.
Right? If he knows they're listening, he goes, "What say you by that?" And he's making excuses to them while he goes back to Hamlet. That's a possibility.
Absolutely. There are right. It's right. It's funny. It's the vagueness that gives that it also leaves brilliant opportunity for a variety of options.
Yes.
And if Shakespeare alive today might be like, well, that is totally not what I meant. I should have probably been more clear about that, but I think people would be reading it. Jeez. But but nonetheless, that's the way it worked out. So
yes, that's right. And that's why we can see it over and over again. So then he asks him, like what you just said, "What do you read, my lord?" And again, one of those most famous, very famous lines that have been debated and how you do it. I kind of like it when it is simple, when it is just words. But it's great. It's one of those famous threes again, right? All the threes that we're talking about, words is great. And it's that Hamlet playing hard to get, making Polonius work a little bit, right? Which is great.
And I love when Polonius' response, "What is the matter, my lord?" which has a triple meaning, of course.
I think I know the two, right? What's the matter? Like, why are you upset? And what's the matter that you're reading, right? And the third meaning, why are you behaving this way toward me?
Well, the third is right, is Hamlet's response, between who? So it's reading,
yes, right.
So it's three. It's the matter of material that you're reading, the matter in terms of
why are you upset and mad? Right.
Why are you
right.
upset?
Why are you
Exactly.
upset and mad? Right.
What's
yes.
the
and
matter?
then the matter,
then,
like, what's the argument? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I love that Hamlet picks up on, or at least wordplay. And let's not lose the fact of this is the first time we've seen someone step into the wordplay ring with Hamlet willingly and do. And not only that, but I mean, I don't know. People say, "Oh, Hamlet makes a fool of." I don't think Hamlet does make a fool of Polonius. I think Polonius does well here.
Well, my counter to that argument would be, just as Polonius had a preconceived notion of Hamlet, Hamlet also a preconceived notion of Polonius. So it's not so much that Hamlet is making a fool of him, is that Hamlet thinks he's a fool because he says it at the end of this this beat. And he is just going by that. So both of them are blind to what's actually in front of them. It's very interesting.
True. No, that is very true. But they both, in boxing terms, they both jab and counter well. Polonius's counters come as an aside, but they both stick and move pretty well in the scene.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. The Polonius obviously more duty bound and respectful than Hamlet, who uses the shield of madness to insult him. Certainly, later on, that's what you do when you're mad.
Yeah.
A lot of benefits of being mad. That is not, a lot of deficits too, of course, but that's one of the benefits.
But let's put it. That's right. So between who, and then what?
I mean, the matter that you read, my lord.
Very good. Slanders, sir. For the satirical rogue in the folio its slave says here that old men have gray beards. Now, this is always, whenever I've seen it done, it's somehow in reference to Polonius himself. He's kind of naming the things that Polonius has, but old men have gray beards, their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber or plum tree gum, and that they have a plentiful lack of wit together with most weak hams. So it sounds like if Polonius is played by an older actor, and that is the description of that older actor, that Hamlet is just describing what he's seeing right in front of him, which is interesting, which is good. I like if it works in the production. All which, sir, though I most powerfully and potently believe, yet I hold it not honesty to have it thus set down. For you yourself, sir, shall be as old as I, if like a crab you could go backward. So it's a whole kind of insult on being old. He's attacking him on being old, pretending that he's getting it out of this book that he's reading.
Yes. And also, giving an insult, but also under the a triple mask of saying, well, it's not polite to write such things down.
Yes.
It's not proper
That's
manners.
That's
So,
right.
I
It's my dad's favorite joke. My dad, no matter whoever he met, he used to say all the time, if he met him for the first time, he's like, listen, I don't care what anybody says. I think you're a nice guy.
yeah,
Stuff like that, right?
exactly.
Or I'd introduce him to a friend. He's like, he's not near as ugly as you said he was, right? It's that I'm giving a compliment. That fact, it's exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
Right. But I love when he says, for yourself, you have you yourself, I have for yourself. Again, this is just the Folger version. I like you yourself better. For you yourself, sir, shall grow old as I am. If like a crab, you could go backward. I mean, there's something, I don't know, wonderfully playful at that. It's like a little, from my perspective, it's a little clue that Hamlet knows what he's doing, and that he knows he's being a little bit cruel, but also almost invitation to let Polonius know, I'm just kidding.
Yes, that's a good point too. Whereas good kissing carrion daughter conception was a little more personal and dark. This is like, hey, you could look like me one day if you could turn back time. Think, think, think,
Yes.
think, think. You know what I mean? It's a funnier kind of, yes, right.
It's more playful and more, getting Polonius in on the joke. And Polonius, and there's some brilliance in that. And Polonius, of course, makes his arguably second soliloquy in regard to this, and he goes, though this be madness, yet there is method in it. And so I thought about that, and was like, what does he mean by method? And he's like, he could be saying this is bullshit, or this is maybe Polonius's clue that, oh, there's a style to this madness, a specific style that is not haphazard. And so it makes him a tiny bit suspicious. Again, he's clouded by his own preconceived notion. And so this is the first chink, the first time he's kind of took note, because Polonius is no dummy, the chink in that armor.
Yeah, right.
That's the way I mean, upon recently reading it.
Yeah, because you're right. He's not saying, oh, he's feigning madness, because the beginning of that line is, though this be madness. So he is saying this is madness, but you're right. He's pointing out there's a reason to it. Like, don't just think this is willy-nilly. There's something he's getting at here. There is something going on here. He's constantly looking for those facts to back up that theory.
Yeah.
So
So right. So even though he has a preconceived notion and a preconceived plan, as it were,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's like, oh, don't this be madness, yet there is method in it. So
Mm.
then he says no more, goes back to Hamlet's, and I love this exchange. Will you walk out of the air, my lord?
Hmm. Into my grave. That's great. That's great.
Whoa.
Again. Yeah.
I mean, that's again, it's a great tennis match at this point.
Yes. Right. Right. And so what does Polonius mean by walk out of there? Just mean like go take a walk with me? Is that what he's asking?
No, he's like, they are in an outdoor courtyard. He said, will you go inside? I mean,
Go.
basically
Okay.
inviting him, will you walk out of the air and back
Right.
inside?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and Hamlet volleys into my grave. And he goes, whoa.
Yeah. Takes it literally. If I'm going out of it, if I have no more air, right, then I am dead. And look, I love Polonius saying, touche, touche is what Polonius
Yes.
basically says.
Yeah. How pregnant. And this is my favorite when he goes, it's these two lines. He goes, how pregnant sometimes his replies are. And this is probably one of my favorite lines in the play. And in addition to there you are, a happiness that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity could not so prosperously be delivered of. Ah,
So good.
I love that. So truthful, and one of the most insightful lines of the play, because it speaks to a lot to, well, even the mentally ill have access to something that a normal person may not.
Yes. Yes.
Access
That's right.
to a knowledge, to an insight. And
Yes.
how Polonius knows this, that I don't know. But
Right, right. And so how do we, if we're in a production or I'm playing Hamlet or whatever, how do I take that word happiness? Is it a levity that he's referring to that he sees in
No.
Hamlet?
it's
Okay.
it's an insightfulness. It's a clever use of words,
Okay.
wordplay. But I've always interpreted it as an insightfulness.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And never as, even though I love on the surface to modern audiences happiness, just on the surface, a joy
Sure.
or what have you, which by the
Yeah.
way also works.
I think so too. If a modern audience hears it that way, with the playfulness that we just came off of, it works. Also, the insightfulness that Hamlet is pretending to have, that works as well, which sometimes sanity and reason doesn't allow you to be that insightful because you're putting up all these walls, because you're, whatever. I don't see the ghost because I don't believe in the ghost or whatever it is. Once you let that stuff go, then all of a sudden there's that happiness that often madness hits on. Fantastic.
Yes. The Folger's happiness is as aptness of phrasing that also is on par. But, it also speaks to Polonius. He's hand to the king for a reason. In addition to being intelligent, he has this sage wisdom that only experience. He must have experienced a lot of crazy people, or people who dive into. I mean, maybe it speaks to Shakespeare himself. I mean, a lot of artists, it's a fine line between creative genius and madness.
Madness. Yes, absolutely. I was just reading recently somewhere, one of these I looked at, that said something about, I'll have to find it, but out of the top, 5 or 6 most quotable lines in Hamlet, Polonius has 4 of them. Like there's no, that's not coincidence that Polonius is the one that comes up with these insightful lines that we remember. I think that's very interesting. I think the actor playing Polonius should be very aware of that.
I think about this line a lot, and I quote it and I use it a lot, because it's just the phrasing, the meter of it. A
Yeah.
happiness that often madness hits on which reason and sanity could not so prosperously be delivered of. It's a lot on the tongue if you don't know it, but when you know it, it's just
Oh, so
food
good.
for your spirit. It's food
It
for
really,
your soul. It just nurtures your desire to appreciate art and literature
yeah.
and just life. So I just
Yeah.
in love with that line.
I think it's great too. And I think I remember being the second time I played Hamlet, coming up this next line, I remember the director saying, Polonius is also smart enough to know when to get out.
Yep.
He saw what he needed to see. He played around. It's time. I've got everything I need to go. Whereas other characters don't know. Others come up against Hamlet and they stay too long.
Yes. That's very true, my lord. Uh, that's very true. Absolutely. That's a good point. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
So yes, Polonius says, I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. Punctuation, very interesting, because they have in the punctuation, and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him. Otherwise, without the punctuation, it would be, I will leave him and my daughter. So it's
Leave him.
curious.
Oh, okay.
So I love
Right.
that it's the whoever chose the punctuation. I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. And then he switches back to, public Polonius, my lord, I will take my leave of you. And
And
Hamlet's
I
response
love,
is,
and this line, my friend, I gotta say, in a modern audience, get this every single time. This line works every single time. A modern audience hears this exactly right. I will take my leave of you. Well, you cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all. That's fantastic. But then he turns to another three: accept my life, accept my life, accept my life, which in the folio, it is just accept my life, comma, my life. And then I guess the quarto 2, it is accept my life 3 times. What is it? I don't know.
interesting. I wonder why in the folio he would take such a brilliant 3 and whittle it down to 2. That's a very curious thing. My question to you, again, upon reading it recently, you cannot take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all. So
Yes.
that makes sense. When he says, but when he puts his life as an exception, is he saying you cannot take my life, or you
No,
can
he's
take my
saying
life?
the only thing, right. So you cannot, in other words, I will willingly part with my life, and at the same time, you can take my life from me.
Oh,
Right. He's saying my life is something that I will say, here, you can have it. I don't want it, but you still have to kill me to take it. Whereas your leave, I so don't care if you leave that it's not taking it away from me.
gotcha.
I think that's how I read it.
And then, of course, except, even though it's written as EXCEPT, could also be, as you say it 3 times, it turns into the ACCEPT.
Accept my life. That's interesting. Right. Because we have to, again, good point, because we have to remember how things are heard in this play.
Yeah.
I am too much in the sun, after he says, now Hamlet, my cousin and my son, I'm too much in the sun. Right. We have to remember how things are heard in this play. And this play was written for how things were going to be heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Accept my life, accept my life, accept my life. Again, a great 3 words, 3 that you get to play with. Again, how comic is it? How dark is it? Is it a turn right there? What is it? I've played it differently both times. Yeah, and that's up to the actor and the director. And then Polonius is very wise to know, I should just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, fare you well, my lord. And then Hamlet.
And then these
Hamlet has
tedious
his
old
own aside.
fools. It's funny. That's never labeled. Well, I say never. Hold on. Let me check. Yeah, not in the folio, not in the quarto. It's not labeled as an aside, but it certainly feels like one, doesn't it?
Yeah, for some reason, the Folger gives it an aside.
Oh, it does. Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm wrong about that. So the Arden doesn't, and the Folio doesn't, and I don't think the original Quarto does either. Interesting, but I think it feels like one, so I can see why you would put that there. It definitely feels like one.
And
Uh,
and that's when we have the lovely Polonius and counting RNG. You go to seek the Lord
yeah.
Hamlet. There he is.
Good luck. So let me just speak for a minute on the bad Quarto.
Okay.
What is, do your own research on what the bad Quarto is. First of all, the bad Quarto wasn't discovered until 1823, which is 220 years after the folio, no, after the first publication, which was 1603. 1623 was when the folio was published, and in 1823, 200 years later, this Quarto was found, the bad Quarto, Quarto 1. Some thought it was a touring version of the show. Some thought it was that earlier version of Hamlet, which was written about in the 1590s. There was an earlier version called the Ur Hamlet. So people thought, oh, it's part of that. The theory that is, I think, trusted and believed the most is that it's a pirated copy from an actor who was in a production and then went to another whatever publisher and said, I can remember the lines. Him and a writer sat down and they put this thing together and they called it Hamlet. The reason that is believed is that any scene with Marcellus in it is pretty much perfect. The scene with Lucianus, which the actor playing Marcellus would probably double as Lucianus in the play within the play, that scene is perfect. And the Voltimand scene is perfect. So this actor probably played those three roles in a production. So those were good. Other than that, they're pretty made up. It's very short. It sounds ridiculous when you read it. But the one thing that I kind of dig, and yes, we've talked about this, which I'm open to, that Shakespeare constantly kind of rewrote, repositioned scene, cut things out, added things. That maybe the order of the play in the bad Quarto was the original order. And then he went back and rewrote it. And I just can't get away from how much I like that order that's in the bad Quarto. The order is expostulate, right? So Polonius goes in and does expostulate, and Ophelia is in that scene. They see Hamlet coming, and he says, here, Ophelia, read upon this book. So they're about to go into the nunnery scene. Hamlet comes down. First thing we see out of Hamlet, after not seeing him for 3 months, after not seeing him after the ghost scene, is to be or not to be, which makes a lot of sense to me. Where he's been over these past 3 months after seeing a ghost, he comes down and he's contemplating suicide. This task I have in front of me is too great. Why would anyone live? What am I going to do? Da, 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 da. So we see to be or not to be early on. And then the nunnery scene with the king and Polonius listening. That blows up and goes wrong. But then here's a powder keg moment. Right after the nunnery scene is Fishmonger.
Oh.
So he blows up. He knows that maybe he knows that the king and Polonius are listening. He blows up at Ophelia for trapping him, whatever it is. And then he turns around and plays crazy with Polonius and asks Polonius, do you have a daughter? I wish you were so honest a man. And he kind of starts to attack Polonius a little bit in that scene. It changes the entire feeling of the scene. But I have to say it works at the same time. I've done it that way once. It's really interesting. And then what happens is everything else becomes more linear, which may be good, maybe not. Because if not, to be or not to be comes right after Hamlet comes up with his plan. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. The next thing you see, Hamlet goes, I don't know why I'm living. Maybe I should kill myself. Right? That's how it's normally played. So this way, there's more linear approach. We did it when I did it at Kingsman. We did Fishmonger. And then after accept my life, accept my life, accept my life, that took me into to be or not to be. That is the question. After Polonius exits. So I'm thinking about my life, taking my life. That got me into To Be or Not to Be, which got me into Nunnery, and everything else was linear from there on out. But earlier when we said, well, God a mercy, was such a big line because we haven't seen Hamlet in a while. Polonius says, how are you, my lord? And he says, well, God a mercy. I do kind of like the idea of the first time we see Hamlet after hearing that he's been crazy is fishmonger. I like that too. So either choice, whatever you want, there is a text between the bad quarto, the second quarto, and the folio that you can take inspiration from and kind of can back you up. Anyways, thank you for letting me have that little aside there.
No, it's I love the idea. First time you see Hamlet in Act 2, after the celery scene, to be or not to be a great intro. You know, there's something powerful about that because it tracks completely. And so then again on the back quarter, so to be or not to be, and then fishmonger. No, to be
and
or not
then
to be nunnery, because that right, because they're together. And then after nunnery, fishmonger. Right?
And because the other connection it does make slightly, which again is thin, is that Polonius just said, I will loose my daughter to him. He shows up, does to be or not to be, and they immediately go into that plan. So that kind of makes sense a little bit too.
Yeah. Just wonder about having fishmonger
right after nunnery.
Yeah, that's the only kind of chink in that.
It changes the scene for sure.
Yeah.
It's no longer comedy. It is dark, and all of a sudden now, Polonius, you're straight up my enemy now. Yeah.
That's what and that right. And whether if you played any comedic moments, would it work after the harshness of the nunnery scene? Like,
good point. Good point.
Why would Hamlet be so playful? You know, he wouldn't. And so then, you know,
he definitely comes off far more crazy. When we did it, you go, oh boy, he's putting on antic disposition, and he's really leaning into the crazy rather than the playful.
I would love to see a run, like a 2-week run, maybe 3, of each night is a different version of Hamlet, you know?
Yeah. Oh, we moved it around in rehearsals in the Kingsman production. We put To Be or Not to Be in a couple of different places. And yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Did you put it during your run in different places or during rehearsals?
No, during our rehearsals we did. And then we landed on right after Fishmonger. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd be curious to see it, a run like that. Like you could go 3 nights and be like, it's a different Hamlet each time.
I think you could. I would be totally willing to do that. Also, when we put it that early, and this may be in my head, before I say this out loud, the caveat, it may be in my head, but there is a suspense from the audience hearing that famous speech so early in the play. What I mean by that is it's so early and you just did this fun fishmonger scene, and then you turn and say the most famous line, maybe in English literature, and you can hear the audience hold their breath because here it is. And they're taken by surprise rather than an hour and a half into the play. And you open after your intermission, you come out and do this famous speech. Feels a bit like a set piece. Whereas when you put it earlier, it feels like part of the play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, It's fun to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Very interesting.
So then, so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern enter with nothing but naivete, and they come in without even a plan of what to say. These two, they don't even come up with like.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and this, as I reread this scene again and again, they had no plan but to lie and deceive. And that is definitely true, because as we see, as the scene progresses, all Hamlet is saying is, just be straight with me. What are you doing here? And they don't answer him. And they go through it for a number of lines. He's like, and he says it in like 10 different ways. Be straight with me. Well, just, okay, seriously. I know we can have fun. Why are you here? And he's like, you know what? I know why you're here. I mean, as I'm like, I get it why he kills these guys. Spoiler alert, because he all he wants and no is for someone to be straight with him, and no one is. No one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And had his own friends. God knows what his relationship was like back in Wittenberg, but his own friends are playing these games with him. It must create, such rage and isolation
Yeah.
in Hamlet.
Yeah.
But
Hey, is there something beeping over there?
yeah, I guess that's a truck
Oh, okay.
outside.
Gotcha. I didn't know if there was a bomb about to go off and we only had a couple of seconds because I was just going
Well,
to
there
jump to the
is
end of the
that
play.
too, but I just
Okay,
figure
good.
that's just part.
So you make a good point here. And one of my pet peeves with this scene is when people play smartest guy in the room, and as soon as he sees Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they know why they're there. And then I always say, then what's the point of the scene, right? They like to it's like cat and mouse. He just toys with them and then kicks them out. Well, then what's the point of this scene? And people tend to say, like you and I said earlier, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern don't seem to be that close to Hamlet or that close of friends. Maybe the king and queen called in the wrong people, whatever it is. How close is Hamlet to these guys? How honestly happy is he to see them? But I think something has to happen in this scene. I think you have to, something like you just said, he has to realize. I think something has to dawn on him. He has to ask them to be straight with him, be honest with me. And if they are his friends, then it hurts even more. And I think it should hurt more.
And increases his distrust of pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
And so, again, just to note, I know you're not a fan as much as I am. Laurence Olivier, when he made the film feature version of Hamlet, which won Best Picture,
he cut him out.
Are not. Yeah, he cut them out entirely.
Yeah.
Now
he also cut out Rogan Peasant Slave. Yes.
Yep. And about, you could say, in interest of time, it's 1948. They didn't have as many 2.5, 3-hour films. Gone with the Wind was made in 39. Obviously, that was big. But I guess for who knows what reason. But it's curious that you can do a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern less Hamlet, and it still works. But if you are going to include them, you got to make it count. And so that kind of reinforces your points. There, it's got to be an important moment, not for them, because they learn things, because they're idiots, but for Hamlet.
Yes, I think you're right. And the opening of this scene, just like we said, Fishmonger could have been in Comedy of Errors. The opening of this scene could have been in Love, Labor's Lost. It's three guys kind of chatting it up, being funny, wordplay kind of thing. Rosencrantz, God save you, sir, Guildenstern, my honored Lord Rosencrantz, my most dear Lord. There's so many opportunities in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to play off of each other. Who is, for lack of a better word, who's the smart one, who's the dumb, who takes the lead, who steps back, who makes the mistake. I think you can really differentiate the two. I think they work well together. They are not the same person if you look at the lines and who says what.
Yes.
So Hamlet, my excellent good friends. It drives me nuts when that line is delivered ironically, because I think love is your best choice in every scene. So my excellent good friends, how dost thou, Guildenstern, Rosencrantz, good lad, how do you both? You want to talk about opportunity? Here's opportunity. Is he playing with them because he knows people confuse them? Because we just saw in the last scene that the king and queen confused them. So is he playing that up? Is there not a joke there at all? Anytime you use those names like that, you have an opportunity there. But I do tend to believe it is an honest surprise, happy to see you.
Yes.
Because if you play the end of this scene at the beginning, why is it there?
Right, exactly. And I love Rosencrantz's response, which I've given some thought to, as the indifferent children of the earth. It's such a curious line, and I looked into it, and I kind of looked into the meaning of it. And it's basically, again, these, I hate to judge a character this way, but these are dim-witted fools, which makes you think, why would Hamlet hang out with these idiots? Particularly when they're putting up the front and as the indifferent children of the earth basically saying, yeah, I'm all right. Things are okay. Whatever. It's like, wow, you're already
Yeah.
like strike one in your attempt.
Yeah. I think you make a good point, and I think you do as the director and as the production. I think you have to justify why they were friends. Same thing with Hamlet and Horatio. I think you have to justify it. Same thing with Hamlet and Ophelia. Any moment you get, you have to justify that. There has to be, maybe it's just in these first 10 lines of them bantering back and forth, and you go, for a glimpse, you see why they were friends 20 years ago. Just for a glimpse. I think you do have to justify it somewhere. Yeah.
Particularly when, Guildenstern.
Yes, happy. So Rosencrantz says, we're fine. And Guildenstern's like, let me explain further. Let me tell you. Yes. So we're already seeing a little back and forth where Rosencrantz like, not much. Guildenstern's like, well, I can be poetic. I can do a little wordplay. Happy, and that we are not or happy. On Fortune's cap, we are not the very button. So he's playing a little bit. He knows Hamlet likes wordplay. Hamlet, tennis racket back, nor the soles of her shoe. Rosencrantz, again, neither, my lord, just right down the middle, kind of, oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah, not that too. Hamlet, then you live about her waist or in the middle of her favors, probably confuses Rosencrantz. Guildenstern picks up on the double entendre.
Yes.
Says, oh, Faith, her private's we. And I can imagine Hamlet and Guildenstern laughing and Rosencrantz laughing just because he has no idea why anyone else is laughing.
Right.
That's one way. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that seems to be the best way. But right, there's many different ways to skin a cat, or in this case, why are you skinning a cat? Jesus. But anyway, many plays to play this scene. But I love that take on it. Seems to make sense. And I think
you need to be that specific when you're in a rehearsal and you need to be that specific. Whatever choices you make, the only mistake is to be general with who they are, what their relationship is, right? And it's in the text. Look in the text. See?
Yeah, I didn't realize that until now. But thank you. That's great. I love that.
I think we'll see if that tracks. Maybe it doesn't. But at some point in rehearsal, you say, "Oh, you know what I'm realizing? Rosencrantz, always says the simple answer, and Guildenstern explains, or whatever it is. Rosencrantz always puts his foot in his mouth, and Guildenstern has to make up. Whatever it is, you'll find something in rehearsal, but it needs to be that specific. In the secret parts of Fortune, oh, most true, she is a strumpet. What news?" Again, so he's asked them straight out, "What's going on? What's up with you?" He hasn't said specifically, "Why are you here?" But that's what he's getting to, right? And Rosencrantz kind of puts his foot in his mouth and is like, "Nothing." Just standing right in front of him.
But he makes it worse. Yeah. He delivers an ironic line, though he doesn't understand that it's ironic. "None, my lord, but that the world's grown honest."
Yes. Well, that hot word "honest" all of a sudden comes up again by accident. Yeah. Right. "None, but the world's grown honest. Then is doomsday near. But your news is not true. Let me question more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of Fortune that she sends you to prison hither?" So great. So Hamlet's like, okay, I don't mean the news. I don't mean what's going on in the world. I mean, why are you here? Because this place is hell. This place sucks. Why are you here?
And I love also that Hamlet's response is an antithesis. "Oh, the world's grown honest. Then is doomsday near."
Yes. Yeah, that's really great. This is one of the most fun scenes to play if you are really listening to each other. If you're not playing the end of the scene, if you are absolutely listening to it, it is one of the most fun. And a lot of information is dropped in here. I mean, well, the characters learn a lot of information. That she sends you to prison hither. Guildenstern jumps in. "Prison, my lord." So here's a little bit. So we got to remember what their job was. What was their job, right? Glean what afflicts him, right? That's why they're there. So they're looking for those clues, right? Send you to prison hither. Prison, my lord. Denmark's a prison. So now let me ask you, Paul, so far it feels far more honest than Fishmonger, maybe the most honest we've seen Hamlet in a while.
Well, it has to do with relationships, because obviously Hamlet's pals, school pals, he can be more himself than with Ophelia's dad and the king's hand, who's loyal to the king,
right?
Who he thinks is just an old fool. Particularly anyone loyal to Claudius is an old fool. That's a big part of it too. So Hamlet is more to himself, and throughout the scene, particularly where it goes hem from a hacksaw, he marks them and notes them, but is still true to who he normally is with them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. Because he starts to open up a little bit.
Yes.
So Denmark's a prison, Rosencrantz, then is the world one, a goodly one in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst. We're getting a great insight, and I tend to believe what Hamlet is saying here, but we're getting an insight on where his mind has been the last 3 months, how he's felt being locked in this prison. That great Michael Grandich production with Jude Law. Although I wasn't a fan of Jude Law, the direction was fantastic, because it was, throughout the play, you started to realize it looked like solitary confinement, the whole set. Like in Act 2, this little window with these bars at the very top opened up, and it was just this little solitary confinement, this mind of his that was in a prison. So Rosencrantz maybe putting his foot in his mouth again. Well, we think not so, my lord. Hamlet, well, why then 'tis none to you? For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me, it is a prison. Coming from a character who does a lot of thinking and is all about thinking and double thinking, nothing
it's
either
a
good or
happiness
bad.
that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity cannot so prosperously be delivered of. This is one of them. That's what an incredible insights.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right. And I always say too, like, you're gonna play Hamlet, all of this stuff has to be the first time this stuff has come to you. This has to be the new version of you. So that line cannot be something that Hamlet used to say. This can't be something that Hamlet said before his father died. This has to be something that dawns on him in the moment, this insight that dawns on him in the moment. So he says, to me, it is a prison. So he's being very honest, very open. Rosencrantz, why then your ambition makes it one? 'Tis too narrow for your mind. Rosencrantz just going right in there, like just taking the bait, just going for it. Hamlet, oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. Love that line. Love that line.
Tell me about that. Talk to me about that line.
He's saying, so Rosencrantz is saying, like, your ambition is too narrow for your mind. In other words, your imagination isn't big enough. You think this place is a prison? No, your imagination isn't big enough. Your mind isn't big enough. You need to think bigger. And Hamlet goes, think bigger. I could be in a nutshell and think myself king of infinite space. That's how big I think. I think bigger than you've ever thought before. But I have bad dreams. I'm having a bad day. I'm having a bad 3 months. So that response, I think that response of, this is how big I can think.
I love that. Yeah, that because I always was curious about that line.
Because he's saying I'm trapped in a prison. Rosencrantz is saying, oh, you need to let your mind imagine bigger than a prison. He goes, oh, I could be in smaller. I can be in a nutshell and be king of infinite space. It's
right. I love that. Were it not for that, I have bad dreams. And then Guildenstern, which I now fully understand it being the smarter of the two, which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. Very, wow. Hey, Guildenstern,
Yeah.
throwing out some key wisdom there. What do you know? That is not a Rosencrantz line. Whoa,
That is not
Guildenstern.
okay. I love that. And in rehearsals, that should be the talk. That is not a Rosencrantz line. It should not be who says that? R or G, I'm not sure. No, no, no. It's very clear which one says that.
Yeah. I'm just seeing that now. I love that. And then Hamlet's, and this is a line that intrigued me when I was 20. I remember when I was in college, and I asked my teacher, why would Hamlet say that? What does that mean? And his response was, get out of my classroom. What are you doing here? You're not even registered. So yeah, that.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yes, right. Who are you?
But this exchange, which is always cut. I mean, I've never seen a production that's had this exchange. Have you?
No. The next few lines, no. I'll show you where I've done, and it's kind of interesting. So he says, ambition merely the shadow of a dream. A dream itself is but a shadow, which this idea of dreams is going to come back a little bit later, right? So right now in the play, you're like, well, all of a sudden he's talking about bad dreams. Well, later on when he says what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, it didn't make sense.
Oh, I never thought of that. Okay.
Spoiler alert. A dream itself is but a shadow. Rosencrantz trying his best. Truly. And I hold ambition so airy in light of a quality that is but a shadow's shadow. All right. All right.
Which, of course, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. I mean, I don't.
Doesn't mean anything. And in the production that I've done, I think it was the first one I did, we had a moment right there. The next line was cut. We went all the way to, I will not sort you the rhythm. I must, but then be, where was it? I cannot reason. Shall we to the court? So Rosencrantz jumps in with, it is light in quality that it is but a shadow's shadow. And there was a quiet moment of like, and then Hamlet says, shall we to the court, for by my say I cannot reason. Like, let's get the fuck out of here. We've gone off the rails now.
For a second, before this episode tonight, I was treating that line seriously, saying, what does he mean? I was trying to justify the line, saying, okay, so an ambition is so airy, in light of quality that is but a shadow. I suppose, yes, it's a variation of a dream. So yes, I mean, right. But now reading it in the context that thankfully you have given me, thank you. And of course, reading it out loud with you, I now understand what the line is. So that's awesome.
I think you're right in that it's nonsense. And if you do use Hamlet's next line, I think it's nonsense on top of nonsense. I've seen scholars and people try to break it down and explain, but if you have to spend 3.5 pages explaining that line, then it means it's going to be nonsense to your audience, and you should lean into the nonsense.
Yes. Then are our beggars' bodies and our monarchs and outstretched heroes the beggars' shadows. And to prove that's nonsense, no break, he immediately has a beat shift. Then are our beggars' bodies and our monarchs and outstretched heroes the beggars' shadow. Shall we to the courts? For by faith I cannot reason. Yes. So
yes, that's it.
Yeah. So it's like, let's end this nonsense. Let's get out of here. I have to have the last word because I'm Hamlet, but even that didn't make any sense. So yes.
This is getting ridiculous. Okay. So they head off, and I love to lean into anything that's odd, like two characters saying the same exact line at the same time. I think it works here because I played it in the past. It's a choice. Hamlet goes to leave Rosencrantz, or he says, come on, come with me. They both say at the same time, we'll wait upon you. And if you just play that in rehearsal, it's strange. It's odd. And Hamlet realizes something is not right here. So again, if you lean into the odd and the weird, it can play in your favor, I think.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. And then no such matter. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you continue, please.
No such matter. So they say, we'll wait upon you, which is funny because we've shown up as your friends. We're just here to hang out. Nothing's going on. will wait upon you. We both say it at the same time. And Hamlet says, no such matter. Like, you're not waiting upon me. I will not sort you with the rest of my servants for to speak to you like an honest man. Boy, that word is becoming hot now, right?
Yeah.
To become like an honest man. Boy, he just wants people to be honest. Oh my goodness. He just wants people. Someone to be honest with me. I am most dreadfully attended. I take that as people are watching me. People are asking me if I'm okay, all this bullshit. But in the beaten way of friendship, what make you at Elsinore?
Love that, because he
Yeah.
again asking the same question over and over and over again. There is not a beat between that. It's basically, I'm going to bullshit with you, but in the beaten way of friendship, what make you at Elsinore? They're like, well, and the dimmer one, of course, lies straight through his teeth. To visit you, my lord, no other occasion.
Yes. Yes. Right.
And then Hamlet, obviously seeing through this transparency, beggar that I am, I'm even poor in thanks of that. But I thank you, in short, dear friends, my thanks are too dear a halfpenny. Will you not send for? Again.
Straightforward, right to the point. I need to know. No more bullshit. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to put on a mask. I don't want you to put on a fucking mask. Right. And what is it? Is it 3 questions, 4 and whatever? Were you not sent for? Is it your own inclining? Is it a free visitation? Bang, bang, bang. Just tell me what is going on. And now listen, the thing I said earlier is you have to choose when in this scene you're getting suspicious. Because if right from the very top you play the end of the scene, it doesn't work. So you have to layer that in of when, well, that's odd. Well, that's odd. They're not answering me. They're not answering me. It's got to build. This scene has to go somewhere. It's a waste if it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Then he says, come, deal justly with me. Come, nay, speak. I love that, because you get the opportunity, if you are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, what are you doing? I remember the first time I played this, 2 guys playing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, excellent, great actors. And in rehearsal, I always went through like this. Were you not sent for? Is it your own inclining? Is it a free visitation? Come, deal justly with me. And then one night on stage, I just decided to give them room to answer. They have no lines. So I just said, were you not sent for? And boy, it was tense. So I said, is it your own inclining? And just waited. And the look on their faces. And boy, it was so interesting. Something real was happening.
So you choose
either way. Either way, whatever way you do it.
line ending is what you did. It extremely.
Yes.
That's like what line endings were meant for, to a certain extent.
Yes, leave it, and it's elevated, and it's in the air, and it's full, and it's holding your breath. And it was, I turned them into real questions, and then I would mix it up every night. They didn't know what I was going to do with them.
I love
and
that.
We even changed the blocking quite a bit in this scene too, night to night, who I was talking to, where I was talking with. There was a lot of freedom in this scene. And I recommend in rehearsals to play it like that. It keeps them on their toes. And it's great.
That's the way it should be.
It's really great. So he's begging. Hamlet's begging at this point. Deal justly with me.
Yeah, tell me the truth. But then Guildenstern, who we've now determined is the smarter of the two, he gives a very coy response. What should we say, my lord? That's where he's as smart as Habibi and as wise as Guildenstern might possibly be. He's still a bastard, because he is still denying the truth to his old friend.
I'll tell you this. In defense, if I can play devil's advocate, they haven't lied. The closest they did is to visit you no other occasion. That is why they're here. They are to visit them. And then in another half page, he's going to tell him. And here he doesn't say, he says, what should we say? they're not lying. They are feeling the pressure of the king and the money that they're going to get. And they, again, as I said earlier, I have to believe that they think it's the best thing for Hamlet at this point, that they are here to hang out with him and cheer him up and find out what's wrong with him. And if they give all that away, then they've blown it. So in their defense, they never lie.
That is one way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is, you know, they say, "Oh, we're just here," you know. That's for. I mean, for me, it's a version of a lie, but right, it's not a straight, direct.
No, they are here to visit him. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he says, "What should we say, my lord?" They feel trapped. Hamlet, anything but to the purpose you were sent for. And there is I love this line so much. There is a kind of confession in your looks which your modesties have not craft enough to color. I love that. Again, these guys aren't good liars. They can't even put it on their face. Their modesties have not craft enough to color the truth. I love that. And Hamlet goes easy on these guys until he kills them. But in this scene, he doesn't destroy them. I know the good king and queen have sent for you. Now, people love to take that line and say, "Oh, he's known the whole time. He knew from the top of the scene." I like to discover that in the very moment. He looks at their faces and goes, "Okay, I know what's going on now. King and queen are starting to spy on me now." And I think it's more organic, it's more alive, it's better if you discover things in the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, Hamlet does give them, a certain benefit of the doubt, even though it's quite obvious now he can't trust them. So he's putting on a front, you know, and then Rosencrantz doubles down on what I consider, in my perspective, a lie, because they're not being truthful, they're not being straightforward. And then you go, "Well, to what end, my lord? You know, like, well, what do you sent for? What does that even mean?" You know, to what end?
Well, yeah, right. Or he's saying, "Now what?" Words, "Hey, I just discovered that the king and queen hired you," and Rosencrantz saying, "Okay, where do we go from here?" And
that's
Hamlet
true.
says,
that is another one, but that's if Rosencrantz has any intelligence, you know. But I have a feeling.
Well, I just think if Rosencrantz is just a kind-hearted person, if they really think that they're helping Hamlet, if they think they are here, if they believed what the king said he's not himself, and you, being of younger days with him, can cheer him up. We need you to help our friend. I can see myself doing that. I can see myself going and hanging out with a friend and just picking up a phone call and being like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm just calling to see how you're doing because I've heard you were suicidal. And I'm just going to say, just checking in on you." And you go, "Hey, why are you calling?" And I'm like, "I'm checking in on you." And you say, "Did someone tell you to call me?" And I say, "Well, why would you ask me that?" And then you say, "I know someone." And I go, "Okay, someone did. Now what?" That seems very honest to me.
Except that the line that follows is basically answer to the question. Because Rosencrantz is not saying what happens now. He says, "To what end, my lord? Because the reason why that you were sent for is that you must teach me. But let me conjure you by the rights of our fellowship, by the constancy of our youth, by the obligation of our ever preserved love, and by what more dear, better." So it's But again, I could be wrong, because that line, "that you must teach me," because I think I'm reading it, I now realize completely wrong. It's supposed to be read, "that you must teach me." That's how it's supposed to be read.
Well, I don't know how it's supposed to be read. That line, that line is always been a bit of an enigma. I don't know.
It makes sense. It makes sense if it goes, "I know the king and queen have sent for you." "Oh, to what end, my lord?" Defensive, Rosencrantz, that you must teach me. But let me, and then at least the way logic in my mind. And then it goes from that you must teach me, but let me conjure you by the rights of our fellow. So again, he's asking again, be straight with
Right.
me,
He wants,
motherfuckers.
right. He's saying, you got to admit it. Yeah. Right.
Let me conjure you by the rights of our fellowship, by the consonancy of our youth, by the obligation of our ever-preserving love, and by what more dear and better proposer can charge you withal. Be even and direct with me, whether you were sent for or no. I mean, this
And
is
then
what the fifth
Rosencrantz,
time.
yes, but again, they have not lied. Not said a lie. Rosencrantz turns to his older brother, what say you? And then what gets them to tell the truth is Hamlet says, if you love me, hold not off. And he says, okay, all right, I'll tell you.
I can't believe you think they're not lying. I totally think they're lying.
No, they're not. I think, well, I don't see where they tell a lie. I don't see it. Listen, I mean, you can say lie by omission.
That is a lie.
But
a lie by omission.
But they're not. But they're not saying no. They never say we were not sent for. That's a lie. They were never saying that. They say, to what end? If what you're saying is true, so what? Right? Or you could read it that way. Or what do you want me to say? Right? Somebody's accusing you. Did you? What do you want me to say? It's evasive, sure. And why is it evasive? Because they think it's best for their friend. Because they're here to cheer him up. Because they're going to get a lot of money from the king. Whatever you want to play.
Okay.
Because they do. So, anyways, look, I think both are right. Both ways are right, and you get in rehearsal depending upon the actors that you cast.
Yeah.
They figure it out. They figure it out. But yeah, I think either way is right. Yeah,
that's true.
And works as well. So, anyways, he says yes. I love that line that you just read. By what more dear, a better proposer can charge you with all, be even and direct with me, whether you were sent for or no. I just need someone to look me in the eye and admit to the truth. I just need someone. Rosencrantz doesn't want to let down Guildenstern. What say you, Hamlet? Nay, then I have an eye of you. If you love me, hold not off, my lord. We were sent for. So he finally tells him the truth. Finally. And it feels like some of the air in the room gets let out a little bit. Some of the weight off the shoulders gets let off. So I think what you're going at there is an important point because it does have to build to something. And I think what you're saying is the right feeling, is it does have to build. So when he does say we were sent for, Hamlet then gets what I feel like is very vulnerable in his next speech. And I think that vulnerability only comes after, whether you play it the way you see it, the way I see it, it has to build up to that, I think.
You're right. And I think, as you mentioned before, Hamlet can't the foreknowledge of this as the scene begins, as the moment begins.
Right.
But he definitely has it. I think the first where you're not sent for. I think from then on we figure he knows, and then everything beyond that is just playing with them until trying to get them. The motivation changes.
Yeah.
The intention.
Yes.
The great Robert Lewis would say.
Yes.
And so yeah, you're right, because that leads to a big moment where Guildenstern admits. And that's a big moment for them and for Hamlet, because Hamlet, even though he knows it, it hurts as hell to hear them say it. My God.
Yeah. Right.
They sent for my friends. And my friends were put in this position of being a little deceitful with me, a little,
Yep. Right. Right. Exactly right.
And so by the time he says, I will tell you why, so shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy of the king and queen molt no feather, I have of late. So this is where, right, you mentioned Hamlet is very sympathetic towards his friends. And at this point, it's the reality of the situation, basically the effect of his cause, the cause being feigning madness,
Yes,
his
right.
behavior. I mean, he is to a certain extent responsible for this reaction, but it's still.
Yeah, let me ask you, why doesn't he put on the antic disposition with these guys?
In the way that he did with Polonius.
Well, yeah, and he says, I mean, he's obviously been acting mad these past 3 months because everyone's been talking about it. He did this debatable thing with Ophelia, could be madness, could be not. He told Horatio and Marcellus, I'm going to put on an antic disposition. Like, this has been his MO. And these guys enter and he seems very normal, I guess. Why?
Well, I think he's taken by surprise.
Yes.
And number two, it's a reminder of a different life he once had in Wittenberg, and also Horatio's been around, more or less, where perhaps he hasn't seen RNG in a while, and it kind of grounds him because he's surprised to see them, and he is who he is when he's with his friends. And we didn't get that as much with Horatio as we did with RNG, because RNG, he has a very seems a very playful relationship with them. Are they brothers, by the way? Was that ever indicated?
No,
that they're brothers?
no,
Okay.
no. I just, it makes me feel like Guildenstern is the older brother.
Right.
Does he only, well, we'll see, but does Hamlet only do antic disposition with Polonius and King? Because he doesn't do antic disposition with anyone else. He speaks pretty honestly with Ophelia, he speaks honestly with RNG. I think it's just Polonius and King, those people that he messes with.
The people he loves, the people he's closest to, he loves his mother, of course, but yet it's been complicated by a variety of factors, namely him marrying his uncle. It's sort of like, again, I think the shock of seeing his friends and him resorting to the Hamlet that used to be, in a way, but also he is not that Hamlet anymore as much as he'd like to. And a lot of times, when friends you haven't seen in a while, they come to you, it takes a minute for you to incorporate who you are now with these friends from the past.
Boy, I think that's a very good point. And I think answering these questions and having this discussion leads you to how you should start this scene.
Yeah.
And how you should start this scene leads you to how devastating the crush is when you find out, yes, we were sent for, which then leads you on to the vulnerable speech that is, what a piece of work is man. So having these discussions and answering these questions lead 1, 2, 3 leads you right into where we're about to go, I think.
I love that. I have a quote. I have a question about that lovely line. So he says, I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen molt no feather I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seemed to me a sterile promontory, this most excellent canopy, the air, look you, the brave, overhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why it appeareth nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. Wow.
One line in prose.
Yes. He's like, and for the actors playing RNG, that's a big revelation. Like, oh my God.
Huge. I mean, honest, vulnerable, opened right up. All I needed was for you to say you were sent for. Be honest with me, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And then he continues. Now, my Folger has what a piece of work is a man, which I don't like as much as, do you have what a piece of work is man?
So it's like the landing on the moon quote, right? You know that that controversy, one small step
for man. one
one
giant
small
leap
step, right?
forward.
Because and they had to go back and listen to the audio and find out that he really said one small step for a man. Yes. So your question is correct. Let me look. What a piece of work is a man looks like in the folio. And then in the modern text are putting what a piece of work is man. Yeah. So what do you have there? What a piece of work is man?
No, I've always known it as "What a Piece of Work Is Man." There's also a song from the musical Hair that has that title.
Yeah.
But my Folger says, "What
Yeah.
a piece of work is a man."
Yeah. What a piece of work is a man is in the folio, which I tend to lean on. And I can double check.
What about in the
quick.
quarto? I don't. It's
Yeah,
funny. I don't like the line as much when it is a man, because it.
Oh,
for some
right.
reason-
Because right, you're talking about mankind, right?
yes.
If it's not the a man, you're talking about mankind. I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation. Okay. In what a piece of work is man is in the folio. We know that. Yeah, nothing. I will tell you why.
Folio has a man.
Yes, folio has a man, and then let me look at the quarto. Rupert of the Golden Fire. What a piece of work is a man is in both.
Wow.
It's a man. Yeah.
So it's a
Piece of work is a
misquoted
man.
text. Yeah, it makes me think of that line very differently.
I always took it of looking at either Rosencrantz or Guildenstern. So I took it as speaking very specifically. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to think what the difference is between what a piece of work is mankind, and what a piece of work is one person. What a piece of work is, if you look at a man, if you isolate a man, like Rosencrantz, I'm looking at you, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got all of this. Yeah, it is.
I like that.
It's different. It's different.
Definitely. Yeah. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable in action, how like an angel in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet to me, what is the quintessence of dust? Man delights, not me. I know. That's
Man.
harsh.
Oh my goodness. Maybe it just sounds to me and it feels to me the most honest and vulnerable we've seen him, right?
Yes.
A couple of things I want to point out is that he says, so shall my anticipation prevent your discovery and your secrecy to the king and queen moult no feather? Does that sound to you like him saying you're still going to get your reward from the king? Like, I'll tell you so you can stop trying to do your thing, and so your relationship with the king and queen won't falter. Does it sound like he's letting them off the hook a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery and your secrecy to the king and queen moult no feather? Moult the feather, of course, is not an undesirable thing. He's being very forgiving and understanding, and wants to help them.
Right. I think. I think you're right. And then he says, "I have of late, but wherefore I know not." I've always taken that as because to me, and of course, feel free to disagree. Give me another view on this. He very much knows where he lost his mirth.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've always played it as I have of late, and then he kind of aside to them being like, "Oh, but just to let you know, I don't know where this comes. I have no idea. It wasn't a ghost or anything." And then he gets back to the honesty of it, right? That's the one thing he won't let go, or he won't tell, I guess.
Talk about honesty. Hamlet's not being brutally honest, but selective. Selective honesty, similar to RNG.
It does. His feeling. He's like, this is how I feel, but I can't tell you where this is coming from. I just can't. And then he says, "Lost all my mirth," which is true. "Foregone all custom of exercise." Exercise is in the folio. which seems true until later on he says, I've been in continual practice when he's talking about sword fighting. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? And indeed, it goes so. One text says heavily, and one says heavenly. Who knows? With my disposition that this goodly frame the earth seems to me a sterile promontory. Okay, so then he, and I love to point to this when I talk about the two different Hamlets, the Hamlet that comes back from England, how his language changes. Note now that he says, brave or hanging firmament, majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, pestilent congregation of vapors. And he comes back from England and he says things like, if it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. Very simple, very straightforward. His mind is different when he comes back.
Oh, yeah.
And then what a piece of work is a man, in form and moving, how express and admirable. There's a great book about the rehearsals between John Gielgud and Richard Burton when Gielgud directed Burton in Hamlet, and they didn't get along at all. There's 2 books written about those rehearsals. They're fantastic books.
Oh,
I've got
wow.
them. And they had an argument over the word express. Was it express or was it express? Right? And one was saying express sounds like a type of train. And they were arguing, and then someone finally in the rehearsal room says, why don't you just say local? And then they kind of, yeah. Anyways, these are great books. They're really great.
Folger defines express as well framed, ironically enough.
Well framed. Like expressive? Well framed? What does that mean to you? I don't know.
That's a good question. Express, if it is well framed, it fits with admirable.
Yes.
You know, and it could be, express could be a 17th century or a 16th century way of saying, you know, well put together, expressed very well.
Yes. Now, do you put the emphasis on the first syllable or second?
I think the first.
Express. Yeah, I think so. Express.
And that
express.
Who was arguing
express? Express. I think Burton says express, and I think Gielgud. I'll have to look. But when I hear Burton in my head, I think he says, "In form and moving, how express and admirable," instead of how express and admirable. Oh, I don't know. I'm so confused now. I don't know.
I could see that someone's head must have exploded listening to that argument.
You would love these books. You would love these books. Yeah, it's really great stuff. One of the actors, I think it was the guy playing Rosencrantz, had a giant recorder, and he hid with it underneath the stage because the rehearsal was closed between Gielgud and Burton when they talked about the soliloquies. It was only the 2 of them. The actor hid under the stage and recorded the conversation.
Wow, that's well, as he should have.
Yes, absolutely. I want to know what's going on in there. Okay. And yet to me is this quintessence of dust. So what is he saying? He's basically just saying all of these wonderful things, created all this paragon of animals, the beauty of the world, but I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't see it. This is my mindset. And by the way, great foreshadowing, because later on, of course, he encounters the skull of Yorick, and in answer to the question of what is this quintessence of dust, meaning, of course, death, what happened to this great human frame? We turn to dust. He picks up the skull of Yorick and goes, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. Where are your job? Like all of a sudden, he understands the beauty of man. It's like, wait a minute, because it's a different Hamlet. It's a different Hamlet. Kill some
people first, right. But that's whatever.
Sure. Murdering Hamlet, right. Yeah, right, exactly. Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so. Way to go, Rosencrantz.
That's right.
Right?
Ruining this beautiful, poignant moment, and Rosencrantz is like,
Yeah, he said, "Man, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right."
you
I think
know,
that
it's like
gives you it. That gives you insight on the difference between R and V.
exactly.
Yeah,
And then, of course, like a child. Oh my lord, there's no such stuff in my thoughts.
most such
What
stuff.
is
One of my favorite lines. Yeah.
yes stuff?
I mean, I
What
would
did you?
love the actor to we almost look like he forgot what the my lord. There was no such stuff in my let it hang. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes. Can you do that?
Uh,
I mean, this is a technical question.
it's
Um,
prose. It's in prose.
so you can let it hang.
So there's no iambic pentameter. There's no rhyme or
Okay,
meter. There's nothing. It's prose. Yeah.
interesting.
Um, why? And again, that last speech, it just sounds like verse, but it's all in prose. Hamlet
Hmm.
goes prose with all of this stuff. Why did you laugh then when I said, man delights not me? To think, my lord, if you delight not in man, what Lenten entertainment the players will receive from you. We coated them on the way, and hither they are coming to offer you service. He that plays the king. Okay, so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are saying on our way. We saw these traveling players. He that plays the king shall be welcome. I love the phrase plays the king. A
Yes.
little kind of double. Yeah, right.
Oh yeah. By the way,
Um,
just noted that for some reason Rosencrantz takes the lead. Um,
yeah,
after
what is Guildenstern doing?
I don't know. It's a very good question. So the dim one, my lord, there's no such thing. And then he goes, and then of course Rosencrantz goes for the simplest diversion. To think, my lord, if you delight not in man, what Lenten entertainment the players shall receive from you. We coated them on the way, and hither are they coming to offer you service. Like he's like, I don't know about such deep things. I just know I saw the players are coming. You're gonna dig that. Whatever you just said before about it's not me and all that. That's just kind of crazy talk. Anyway, here we go, players. So
Yeah, yeah, it's really true. I also like to think that Rosencrantz is saying, I don't know. If maybe he's saying, if you delight not in man, like, oh, these players are going to come. You're going to hate this. They're a bunch of idiots. And Hamlet goes, oh, great. I can't wait. They shall be welcome. Rosencrantz like, oh, foot in his mouth again.
uh,
He's saying what Lenten entertainment the players shall receive. In other words, you're gonna hate these guys. And Hamlet goes, no, I actually love these guys. And Rosencrantz like, oh yeah, they're great. Yeah, those guys.
oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, right. If you really note of Rosencrantz' intelligence to think that he is taking Hamlet seriously, to think, my lord, if you delight not man, what length of entertainment the players receive from you. We go to them on the way, and hither are they coming to offer you service. But I guess you're not going to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Oh God, they're gonna be embarrassed when they get here. And Hamlet says, he that plays the king shall be welcome. His Majesty shall have tribute on me. The adventurous knight shall use his foil and target. The lover shall not sigh. So he's a fan of actors. He's a fan of performance. I love this side of him. The humorous man shall end his part in peace. The clown shall make those laugh whose lungs are tickled and sear. And the lady shall say her mind freely, or the blank verse shall haunt for it. What players are they? So they get into a section here, which is only in the folio. It is not in the quarto. And the
Oh,
reason being is in 1603, when they wrote the quarto, this was not an issue. And then 20 years later, it became a topical. There was a group of kids putting on these plays, and they were more popular than the adult plays. The adults had to go on tour, basically. And that was going on in 1620s and not in 1603.
now Shakespeare died in 1616.
Yeah, or whenever, sorry, maybe not 1620, but his last time he re-edited it, that's what was going on.
Okay, I was gonna say, 'cause I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, well,
yeah.
who else who wrote this part? Um,
Yeah. And
I
that's
love
another kind
that.
of thing that points to it always getting changed and rewritten and stuff.
I love antithesis. Because Hamlet goes from man delights not me and being miserable, and they go like, oh, the players are coming. It's great turn, and that ironically he comes to he's as he's going through his explanation of how he views the world of misery, and all of a sudden,
Uh-huh.
life he's given a shot of life with the thought from the
Yes.
players.
I know. I'm telling you, it's such a great it's when you get to this point in the play, when you're playing Hamlet, and this has been a long scene, you've done a lot so far. When the players enter, this kind of joy that enters, just with the nature of the actors coming on with their costumes and stuff, and the joy of that, it's true kind of excitement and joy, especially after all these other people have been spying on you and letting you down, and these people are just here to entertain. It's a lovely, lovely moment for the actor.
And it's crazy that this entire moment, this entire page, at least in my Folger's copy, it's all Rosencrantz and Hamlet. Guildenstern is picking his nose or has fallen asleep.
What's he doing? Yeah, what is he doing? And I think, you know what, Paul, you and I have said before, I think when you get it up on its feet, you'll figure it out. I think the actor will figure it out. He'll be like, oh, this is why I'm not saying anything. Oh, okay, I see what's good. You'll figure it out on your feet, I think. So he says, what players are they? Well, even those you were wont to take such delight in, the tragedians of the city. Well, how chances it they travel? Their residence, both in reputation and profit, was better both ways. This gets cut 99 out of 100 times. I think their inhibition comes by the means of the late innovation. Well, do they hold the same estimation they did when I was in the city? You could dive into that. What does that mean? What city are we talking about? When was I in the city? Oh my goodness. How many days of rehearsal are we going to waste on that? I don't know. Are they so followed? In other words, are their audience followed? No, they are not. How comes it? Do they grow rusty? Are they not very good anymore?
Yeah.
Nay, their endeavor keeps in the wanted pace, but there is, sir, it's like an iris, a little irises of children, little irises that cry out on the top of question and are most tyrannical clapped for it. These are now the fashion, and so berattle the common stations, so they call them, that many wearing rapiers are afraid of goose quills and dare scarce come hither. So this is commentary on what was going on at the time whenever he revised this play. What are they, children? Who maintains them? How are they escorted? Will they pursue the quality no longer than they can sing? I love that. Will they do this once their voice cracks? Is that going to be it for them?
Yeah, so they go on and on about, he's asking, are these the players? And he's telling them why the writers do them wrong to make them exclaim against their own succession. Faith, there's much to do on both sides, and the nation holds it no sin to tar them to controversy. There was for a while no money bid for argument, unless the poet and the player went to cuffs in the question. Is it possible? Oh, Guildenstern, welcome back.
Yes. Yeah. He was, maybe he did take a nap. He's like, oh, there's been much throwing about of brains. Like, what? That's a crazy line to throw out there. There has been much throwing about of brains. What the hell does that mean?
I don't know.
And again, I guess that could be played for a comedic moment of him waking up or whatever he's been doing. Like, oh, there's been a much throwing about of brains. It makes me think, like, I guess Rosencrantz was the one knowledgeable of the theater situation. Guildenstern had no interest in the theater as much. And so to him, it's like, oh, there's been much throwing about of brains. I guess, like, I don't know, ideas, or I have no idea. What does it say here?
So Hamlet, right. So then Hamlet says, do the boys carry it away? Meaning, are they good? Are these kids good at it? And Rosencrantz is like, oh yeah, they're good. They even do Hercules. They're quite good. So Rosencrantz is a big fan.
Oh yeah. Is it not very strange? For my uncle is king of Denmark, and those that would make mouths at him while my father lived give 20, 40, 50, 100 ducats apiece for his picture in little. So that's a beat change. It's like all of a sudden they go from telling about the players, and then Hamlet is now, lamenting on Uncle Claudius again, and that's a very odd switch.
Yeah, he goes from, it's kind of how strange the world is. He's like, it's strange that these kid actors are the hit in town now, but I've seen strange things lately. For instance, my uncle is the king of Denmark. I think it's him just saying the world is upside down. The world's absolutely upside down right now. And you know what? This is a little insight here. those that would make mouths at him while my father lived.
I know. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So how people thought of Claudius before, right? They probably, how did they think? Was he this drunkard younger brother? But, was he just like a nobody, a waste of space? But they made mouths at him. Now they give 20, 40, 50, 100 ducats a piece for his picture in little. I do like an added touch when Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are wearing the picture in little of Claudius. It's a nice touch.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I love that.
Yeah, that's a nice little, they're very embarrassing. There's something this
Oh, please.
more than natural if philosophy could find it out.
I love
Yes. And then a flourish of trumpets, and we should probably end there before we jump into players and Polonius coming back on.
But I just want to note, of all people, who's basically the guy half asleep, he's the one that says, "There are the players." I just feel
maybe that's where he was. Maybe he was out on lookout. I don't know.
Yes. I have a feeling Guildenstern just does not know much about the players. That is his weakness. He is not good on that subject. So he's like, you go on. Wow. That was a lot to unpack. And we're still only 2/3 of the way through Act 2, Scene 2.
Yeah, that was a bigger section than I expected. There's a lot going on there.
There's so much going on there. And again, this could be an entire play we're talking about, but no, we're only talking about a quarter of a quarter.
Yep.
And just, it's just so amazing. And just to think, Ty, we still haven't gotten to be or not to be, we haven't gotten to O Rogo Peasant Slave. We haven't got to so much. We haven't gotten to nunnery.
We haven't gotten to the play within the play and everything that happens that night. The closet scene, the going to kill Claudius.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
It's amazing that, it's funny, as we're going through these episodes, I feel like, oh my God, I can't believe this is next,
I know.
And, I mean, it's a lot to going through it also as slowly as we do. It makes me wonder, how do people sit through this thing in one sitting?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Oh yeah. It's like being in rehearsal. There's no off day in rehearsal. You're like, oh, good. Oh, tomorrow we're doing what? Oh, to be or not to be. And then we're doing what? Oh, Rogan Peasant Slave. There's no off day. It's just one hit after another.
I will say this. I know I previously said in past episodes how you really need to do the full text. This might be an argument. Be like, well,
it's
maybe
a lot.
this thing about the little kids and all that. I don't know, but at the same time, the sort of how do I put this? The mediocrity of it compared with the rest of the play, for lack of a better term. It just, I don't know, it adds another flavor to it.
Yeah.
It adds, another color, which can easily be disregarded, and it always is, but it's what makes the play great, that it goes to the greatest highs, the to-be's or not to-be's, and then it goes to the mundane and the, just prosaic. It goes to just this kind of very mundane talk about business, essentially.
Yeah, exactly right. I agree. Yeah, we're going to see it later on too. There's this scene that the only time I've ever seen it played, or lines, is in the Branagh, his complete.
Yes.
It's a whole story about this French swordsman who comes in and praises Laertes for his sword fighting, and it made Hamlet jealous. There's a whole speech about this. And it's like, what is this? But it does kind of add some depth to that relationship. I get it, but it's nice to go this slow and take a look at all that. Boy, that was a lot. My friend.
It was a lot, but wow. I think again, many thoughts on what we're doing. And of course, what always goes through my mind in each one of these episodes is, God, we're going to love Hamlet in a way we've never imagined the next time we watch it in full.
Yep. I agree.
It's going to be like, we're going to be eating every word, every choice, you know, everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's true.
I'm excited for that. In addition to, wow, we're only in Act 2 of a 5-act play, and we still got another quarter to go in just that one scene of Act 2.
Yeah, it's good, my friend. All right. Well, on that note,
Peace. Thank you very much. Looking forward to our next session to complete Act 2, Scene 2.
yes. All right. We'll do it
Yes.
again.
And next
All right, good night,
time,
my friend.
salute. Good night.
Maybe